Hi, my name's Sarah Thomas Moffat. I've been in the film industry since 1996 is when I started broadcasting college. I've pretty much done every job I think there is to do. And I took the Canadian Society of Cinematographers camera assistance course, which then taught me how to load magazines and different rental shops and, just how to be a really good second AC, and got my certificate. And then I took that back to all the first ACs that I met when I was a PA, and I said, I'm ready. So what inspired me to pursue cinematography as a career was something that I wasn't really aware of. I didn't know you could be a cinematographer. I didn't know that that was a job. What I did know is that you could be a photographer. My father always had cameras around the house. The path to my cinematography career has kind of been everything. I've done many jobs under what I call the camera umbrella. I've worked freelance as a camera assistant. I've worked union, non-union. I've worked in documentaries. I've worked in narrative work. I've worked in rental companies. I've worked underwater. I've worked in helicopters, So I've had a lot of different experience over the years to get me to where I am today and to make me understand exactly what kind of cinematographer I want to be today, which is the next trajectory for me, which is really into narrative work and larger format productions, features and scripted narrative series work. That path to get to today. And what happened was all of a sudden all these film crews and union crews in Toronto were getting tossed all these digital cameras. They didn't even know where the on switch was. And none of the follow focus units fit the lenses, and the lenses were completely different than film lenses. It was a totally different system. Sim was one of the only companies in Toronto at the time that could support that demand of transition, except they were broadcast people, they weren't film people. So what happened was there was this big gap in the middle of communication and supplying that demand. And they noticed that I knew both worlds. I knew the film crews because I'd done union work through Hydroflex things and camera assisting things in commercials. Like they knew me, right? I knew the broadcast world through college and some odd jobs that I would do for small television things. I then was approached by Sim in 2006, and they said, will you create this job with us that will bridge the gap between us and them? And I was like, well, this could be really interesting. So I signed on for a 2-year contract. And I did it at the time in my life where I was at a crossroad as well with my career. I was tired of pulling focus. I knew I wanted to make the jump into cinematography, but money was kind of up and down because the industry was up and down a little. It's always hard to make a jump from one level to the next as well. You kind of take a dip when you establish yourself, and then it takes people a while to recognize that you can actually do that job. Is about 2008, and that's when my contract was finished at Sim, and then I went freelance again in 2008. And then I was like, that's it. I'm a cinematographer now, and I don't care if I have to crawl on my hands and knees to get where I want to get. I'm not going to be an assistant anymore. And then I sort of put my foot down. So every job was like a jumping pad to the next, right? And I learned a lot in each different section of work that I did. So we're in 2018 now. And the last 10 years, I've really stuck it out to move up and up and up in my career, specifically as a director of photography. My role as a cinematographer, I see as a service. Sure, I'm a creator. I am a key creative role on set as a director of photography, whether it's a documentary where I'm working with a team of 3 people out in a foreign country somewhere, or I'm working with a large team on a union production. My mindset doesn't change. My leadership doesn't change. My responsibility doesn't change. My work ethic doesn't change. I try and maintain the best of myself and professionalism that I can, doing whatever project I'm doing. What I feel that my responsibility is as a director of photography and whatever I'm doing is to service the story. For me, it's always about the story. Yes, I'm collaborating with the director, and I always put to the crew and the whole team and even the director, when we come up to challenges, for example, you have to make a decision whether documentary or, reality TV, or I do Amazing Race Canada, for example, which is a fun show that I've done a couple seasons on so far. And I'm a runner on the show. I'm a camera person. I run, I run for 30 days about, carrying a 25-pound Sony f800 on my shoulder. You come into challenges, whatever the show is, whether it's a documentary in a small little village in Africa, or a show like Amazing Race Canada, which is a huge moving production at Mach 10 speed, or it's in a studio with actors and sets and crew. All the time, I'm always thinking, what's the best decision for the story? I always try and service the story. I feel like it's my job as a cinematographer to uplift and raise the bar where I can. When resources are minimal or resources are great, you always try and push those boundaries, right? Raise the bar. It's just something that I feel that I do naturally. So sure, I can be limitless in my imagination, and something I learned at the beginning of my career in TV commercials, but you can still be resourceful, and make the best decisions for the job and still try and achieve a great product, in the end. Today in my career and in my life personally, I'm 45 years old. I've learned a lot in life in general, and I've learned a lot in my career in general. I've overcome a lot, as we all do when we get older and wiser. And the fire inside of us that is our youth begins to settle down. And it's not that we lose the passion, we just learn how to control the fire. And I think my biggest struggle for me throughout my career earlier on was that I was so excited to just be a cinematographer or be a camera assistant or, be a part of this world, that when I was faced with adversity, because I was a girl or a woman, I had huge fire, would just escalate in me. So that was a struggle for me, overcoming those barriers, overcoming what boundaries other people set for me and what they perceived that I was capable of or not capable of. Learning how to be graceful, which is something I learned from my mother that I'm still learning today. Learn how to be more graceful in managing that, and learn how to be, but that's something you learn with age, And, I forgive myself and I forgive people around me who have challenged me in those ways before, but I'm also grateful for all of those experiences because it's made me who I am today. And it sounds cliche, but it has made me stronger and wiser and smarter, And all of those struggles, my biggest struggle was gender struggle. It wasn't about, did I do a good job? Did I know how to load a magazine of film? Did I know how to count up my rolls of film at the end of the day? Did I know how to pull focus and save the day when the film was jammed in the gate and stay calm on set? I knew how to do all those things amazingly, and I could do them with great control and finesse in the job. But what my struggle was not getting the next job. That was my struggle. And it wasn't because I didn't do a good job. I always got great feedback, but it was just the body parts that I had weren't compatible with the mindsets of many. And all of those things have taught me a lot. Things are changing today. That's amazing. So today, I focus on those changes. I focus on where I want to be now and where I'm going, and I'm very excited about that. So those struggles don't feel like struggles anymore. They're still present. We still have a lot of work to do, but now we can talk about it without even the discussion being a struggle. I teach a lot of workshops for different organizations. I lecture at the colleges that, the college that I went to, I go and lecture. I'm lecturing again next week at another college. What I see in those programs across Canada, not just in Ontario, and what I also learn from women in the US, my colleagues in Los Angeles who also work with programming and in the ASC as well as outside of that, is that girls in their youth, in college, for example, say early 20s, starting film programs, the ratios are still, less male to female ratios. The male ratios still outweigh that. What I see in those programs, when you get to the hands-on things, is that the males tend to dominate the room and the females stand back. And it's harder for them, even physically, not just mentally, but physically, to get in and have the confidence to stand there and touch the things the guys are touching, because they have to fight harder to break into that little circle. And then the boys will buddy up and they'll go and make a little project and it'll be great. They'll do a really good job. And there are fewer girls to go and make a little project, and the dynamic is different. And it might not turn out the way that they had hoped. One in few does turn out great. There's just more boys sort of populating that network still. So how that transitions to a career, right? If you start in college, is that they don't see that as a sustainable career. Women are not seeing technical roles as a sustainable career for themselves to build a quality of life they want to achieve, to raise a family they want to raise, to not raise a family, to make a choice to not raise a family, but to maybe help other people in their families, or to do other, types of humanitarian work outside of their career as a cinematographer or a gaffer or a key grip. Those technical roles for women, we still see less of, because so many of them reach the middle point in their trajectory and they give up because it's hard. It takes a long time. It takes a long time for men too, but their trajectory is by nature faster. Late in high school, I was exploring career options. Some of the early advice that I got was don't do it. But what I have is stubbornness and tenacity and courage and curiosity to continue to learn. I take workshops still today. I read all the cinematography magazines. I watch all the behind the scenes stuff all the time. I'm constantly taking in information on how do they do that. That's the advice that I think I would pass on to anybody interested in any field within the film or television creative industry, whether you want to be a producer or a director or a cinematographer. If you really, really, really want it bad enough, first of all, you have to ask yourself that question. How bad do you want it? And if you want it bad enough, you will stick it out and ride the waves that come, and they're terrible tsunamis that come in this industry. But if you want it bad enough, you will stick it out. And sticking it out is probably the one thing that will get you through everything. Earlier in my career, it was really difficult to find a mentor, being female. Mentorship is critical for people in the industry. Seeing yourself, seeing a reflection of yourself, the person that looks like you, with the same skin color, the same body parts, or the same hair, it just, something happens in that moment. When you see them over there doing what you dream to do, it makes you feel that much closer and that much more tangible of an opportunity for you to achieve. So, taking that and going to the Oscars this year, I didn't go to the Oscars, but I hope to one day. But a woman that did go to the Oscars was a woman named Rachel Morrison, who is an ASC cinematographer. who is close to my age, and she is killing it. And I think she's originally from New York. She was shooting Mudbound and The Black Panther. She shot one right after the other. Mudbound was nominated for an Oscar while Black Panther was released. And she is the first woman cinematographer to ever be nominated for an Oscar, ever. She is the first woman cinematographer to ever shoot a Hollywood blockbuster studio comic book feature, ever. And those are the goals that I've always had. I love those action movies. I want to do those action movies. Those are the goals I've always had, but even today, as strong as I am, I still doubted if I would ever get there because of all the barriers. When I saw her up there, I get emotional thinking about it because I saw myself. And I was like, I can do it. She did it. I can do it. I see myself. And I think, and I know for a fact that a lot of my cinematography colleagues that are women, from LA to the UK to Toronto, we were all on social media when Rachel was at the Oscars. We were all cheering her on, and we were all bawling our eyes out. We were so excited for her because we all saw ourselves being able to achieve it. And it's just taken too long. It's taken far too long for us to do that, you know. And that's critical. Having a reflection of yourself in a job that you dream to do should be far more diverse in representation than it actually is still today. And I'm going there. I want to win an Oscar. Not for the trophy, but for the mirror. Because I want to show people that you can do it. And it's not about me, it's about us. Two really exciting things that happened this year for me that were two of those big highlights were, one, I got signed with an agent, and they found me through a film festival that I was volunteering my time at, the Canadian Film Festival in Toronto. And at the Canadian Film Festival in Toronto, I volunteered to help them with their director's masterclass. So I hustled and pulled strings to bring in a bunch of film equipment and some volunteer camera assistants, and then we ran around all day and filmed all the director exercises while the masterclass watched. And the film festival was really impressed with that and blown away that, you know, I raised the bar because they said usually they just take out an iPhone and walk around with it. And I was like, what? No way. We need some lights and we need this, and, you know. And if you just ask, people will pitch in, you know. So at that film festival, I was then invited to be on a panel after the workshop about directors and cinematographers and their relationships. In the audience were agents I didn't realize. And a really dear friend of mine who I've known since the beginning of my career is Jeremy Benning. And Jeremy Benning was also on the panel. And Jeremy Benning is also a very established cinematographer. And I was sitting at one end of the panel, and Jeremy was sitting at the far end. And at the end of the great panel discussion, the question was, what's next in your career? And everybody went down, you know, the panel and said, you know, I want to work with this director, I want to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And then it got to me, and they said, Sarah, what do you want to do next in your career? And I just paused for a second, and I had a smirk on my face, and I said, I want to blow shit up. and everybody laughed. And I was like, oh no, I'm serious. I want Jeremy's jobs. And Jeremy laughed. And little did I know, there was an agent in the audience who was listening. 2 weeks later, they sent me an email, and they said, we were at the film festival, we saw you a lot, and we looked you up, and we'd like to talk to you about representation if you aren't represented currently. And I was ecstatic because I wasn't represented currently. Agents wouldn't touch most women with a 10-foot pole because they believed, this is another challenge, that they, people like us were not marketable and sellable. And so when the agent, reached out to me like that, I was like, I said to the agent, so what can you do for me that I haven't already done for myself? Because you see, I'm a 45-year-old woman who slugged it out for almost 25 years, and I have done everything pretty much alone, So what are you going to do for me, and why should I give you my money? And I was ballsy about it, but I was allowed to be. And I said, what did I say that you liked so much on that panel discussion? And they said, you said you wanted to blow shit up. And I was like, really? That's what I said? That was like your last check mark? And they said, yeah, because we knew in that moment that you knew exactly what you wanted, and you were going to go for it, whether we were going to tag along or not. But what we can do for you is open doors. And I was like, I'm in. Let's do this. So now I'm working with this really amazing agency and agent, and that's a big, exciting highlight for me, because they came to me. I didn't go chasing them. And they came to me when I was honest. And they came to me when I was being authentic. And I was fearless in what I was talking about and saying. I was working on a documentary earlier this year about girls' menstrual health care in third world countries, and access to menstrual care and awareness of it. And there's a whole wave of empowerment of young women around the world now. So all of a sudden, I'm there in Kenya at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro. So put my backpack on with my gear in it and start hiking. And there are these women with these beautiful swath red blankets and tall, gorgeous necks with all of their beads and no hair on their heads. And they're just stunning. And there's all these children running after them. I saw them and I was like, I have to shoot this. They're so beautiful. And I'm telling everybody else to just not walk in front of me, right? And I get down with the camera and I sort of hold a position like this as these women are just walking. And I was like, oh, this is so gorgeous. I'm thinking to myself as I'm looking through the camera, just keep walking, just walk. This is so stunning. This is the National Geographic photograph. I'm in it, right? And all of a sudden, one of the African women starts moving the necklaces on her, all the beads on her neck. She starts fiddling. And I'm thinking, stop fiddling. You're beautiful. Just keep walking, right? And she's fiddling, and she starts to pull one off her head. And I'm thinking, oh, what is she doing? Just keep walking. This is so gorgeous. And she starts to walk towards my lens. And she walks right up to the lens, and I lift my head up, and I, of course, break the shot and stand up with the camera. And she comes right up to me and she puts the necklace of beads that she's made right around my head. And they do this beautiful embrace there, this very gentle hug where they just come up to you, and it's not like a European kind of, you kiss on the cheek and stuff. And it's not like a North American bear hug. It's like this very, very gentle, just you rest your cheek on the other person's cheek, just like this for a moment, and like this, and I was just like trying so hard not to bawl my eyes out in that moment, right? And I was so excited and laughing. They were laughing, I was laughing, and we were just like, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, this is what I looked at when I was a kid. That image for me was that, when those moments happen in your life, in your work, specifically in your career, that you see And then all of a sudden, you're actually doing it, you're filming that, and it could have been like 20, 30, 40 years before that, you grew up on these images. And they're giving me these beads off of their necks, these sacred things. And I'm just standing there in total awe of these women. So that, for me, was like a wow, total wow. I was in Prague recently working on another documentary in other parts of Europe, and David Moxness, who's a member of the Canadian Society of Cinematographers, and his wife Maggie Craig, who is a script supervisor, are in Prague right now working on an American television series that is a huge American production that's based completely out of Prague, and they are working on 10-hour days. And they're doing the sort of French style, French hours, and they don't take an hour lunch. They work straight through, but they have a menu brought out to them, and the whole lunch thing, like real food, is brought out to them, and they eat and work. And they, I was allowed to be a shadow for David for a whole day on set, and it was really exciting. Instead of working a 16-hour day or more and getting home, exhausted, and getting up less than 10 hours later and doing it all over again for months at a time if you're working on a show, right? So the way the Europeans are doing it, I'm kind of into that, that's, they're saving time and money, and they're still getting the same amount of work done. They're getting the same amount of show shot. And it still looks great. The quality's still there. College students have access to RED cameras today. They have access to, cinema cameras from Canon, from Arri, from Sony, from RED. They've got all these amazing digital products now that are making their images as students look somewhat comparable to films. What that also does is it gives a false confidence to students coming out of schools. And I'm not curbing anyone's ambition. I was certainly ambitious out of school and in school, but what I also was very respectful. I think because I was also camera assistant in TV commercials, I saw how long it took for a director of photography, running that team and crew and everything they had to do to manage the agency, the production, their team, the film, the exposure, the look. It takes time to master. And it takes time to finesse, to get it right, and to be excellent at it. I'm really excited in my career right now to be moving into scripted work. And I sort of hesitated when I said that because I've done scripted work throughout my career on a smaller scale. Now I'm ready to move all of my experience that I've learned in TV commercials and documentaries and reality TV on a very big broadcast level. I've done some very big reality factual programming series where I've been the head cinematographer and nominated for Canadian Society of Cinematographer Awards for. Very grateful for those experiences. I'm now ready to move all of that knowledge and experience and leadership skill set into narrative. So my next project that I would really love to access is either a narrative series or a feature, a narrative feature. In a dream world, if somebody said, Sarah, you can work with any director you want to work with, I would say, great, get me a job with Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman. I want to shoot the next Wonder Woman movie. That's it.